The Illyrians were masters of the tangible universe. Their civilization was a shimmering monument to flawless, elegant physics. They could bend gravity to their will with a thought, sculpt matter like clay, and their understanding of the cosmos was a breathtakingly beautiful set of immutable mathematical constants. To them, the universe was a grand, predictable machine, and they were its master engineers. Concepts like spirit, faith, or soul were dismissed as primitive superstitions, the meaningless static of less evolved biological processors. They communicated in pure data, their forms sleek and metallic, their movements precise and efficient. Emotion was an engineering flaw. A joint research mission on the unstable moon of Lyra 3 brought Illyrian and human scientists together. The moon was a treasure trove of gravitational anomalies, and the Illyrians, with their perfect instruments and impeccable logic, were there to map its fields with cold, analytical precision. The humans, with their messy intuition, seemingly random curiosity, and frustrating tendency to ask what if, were there as junior partners, their role largely observational. The lead Illyrian scientist, Kale, viewed his human counterpart, Captain Eva Rostova, with polite condescension. She was a geologist, a rock expert as he thought of her. Her methods were chaotic. She would run her hands over rock formations, she would listen to the creaks and groans of the moon, and she proposed wild, creative theories about the anomalies that Kale and his team would patiently, and with a hint of smugness, debunked with impeccable, irrefutable logic. The resonance cannot originate from a crystalline structure at that depth, Kale would state, his voice a smooth, synthetic baritone. The pressure and heat would render it amorphous. Your hypothesis is based on emotional attachment to a pleasing symmetry, not fact. Eva would just smile, undeterred. Maybe, or maybe the crystal is stubborn, like me. The disaster was as sudden as it was violent. A moonquake, triggered by the very anomalies they were studying, ripped through the deep research tunnel where Kale was running a final diagnostic. The world dissolved into a roaring chaos of collapsing rock and blinding dust. When the shuddering stopped, Kale found himself isolated, his comms dead, and his world reduced to a tiny pocket of air. The worst of it was the pain, an excruciating, crushing weight on his leg. A colossal slab of hyperdense Lyran rock had him pinned. His sensors flickered, reporting catastrophic damage to his biomechanical leg and a steady, alarming drop in his power levels. He was trapped, and he was dying. His perfect logic calculated the odds of rescue at 0.00034%. He began the process of shutting down non-essential functions, accepting the inevitable. Then he heard it. Not the sound of rescue vehicles, but the sound of scrambling, of rubble being shifted by hand and ragged, determined breathing. A beam of light cut through the dust, and there was Captain Rostova, her face smudged with grime, her eyes wide with concern. "Kale, thank God. Hold on. We'll get you out." What followed was a lesson in human futility that fascinated Kale even as he despaired. Eva tried everything. She used a portable hydraulic jack. It buckled under the immense weight. She tried a laser cutter. It barely scratched the surface, its energy diffused by the rock's unique mineral composition. The tools that could free him were buried under tons of rubble themselves. She was like an insect trying to move a mountain. Kale, through a haze of agony and failing systems, watched her efforts become more and more desperate. And then they stopped. He saw her do something inexplicable. She stopped trying to fight the rock. She knelt beside the massive slab, placed her bare, vulnerable hands upon its cold, unyielding surface, and closed her eyes. She took a deep, shuddering breath, and her entire body went still, her face a mask of profound, impossible concentration. A soft, golden light began to emanate from her hands. It was the same faint energy signature the Illyrian scanners had dismissively categorized as biological static or neural waste heat whenever they scanned a human. They had assumed it was a harmless metabolic byproduct, the equivalent of engine idle noise. This was not harmless. This was active, intentional. Kale watched, his scientific mind screaming in denial as the light, warm and alive, flowed from Eva's hands and seeped into the rock. The immense weight pinning him didn't move, but it changed. The sensation was indescribable. It no longer felt like an implacable, crushing force. It felt like a gentle pressure, like a heavy blanket. The searing agony in his leg didn't vanish, but it receded, becoming a distant, manageable thing. The rock itself seemed to acquiesce. With a grunt of effort and sheer disbelief, he was able to shift his body and pull his shattered leg free. The multi-ton slab of rock shifted with him, light as a balsa wood model. He scrambled back, staring at Eva, who now slumped against the tunnel wall, deathly pale, her breath coming in ragged, painful gasps, her hands trembling and raw. The golden light was gone, snuffed out. "What did you do?" Cale gasped, his voice hoarse and crackling with static. "You manipulated the local gravitational constant? You altered the strong nuclear force within the atomic lattice? What was that energy signature?" Eva shook her head weakly, a faint, exhausted smile touching her bloodless lips. "No, nothing so complicated. I asked it to be lighter." Cale stared. "You asked it? Captain, rock is not a sentient being. It does not negotiate. It obeys the laws of physics. What was the energy source? The frequency? You must give me the data." "Everything has weight, Cale," she whispered, her eyes closed against the pain of exertion. "Not just mass, memory, purpose. This rock, it's ancient. It's been here for 1 billion years, just holding on, being heavy, being solid. I just acknowledged that. I thanked it for being so strong, for holding this moon together for so long. And then I asked it to share the burden for a moment, to be a little less itself, so you could be more of yourself. The light, that's just what it looks like when we do that. We don't really have a word for it. Will, maybe. Spirit, soul." The Illyrian rescue team arrived then, finding their colleague free and the human captain on the verge of collapse. Back on their ship, they ran every conceivable test on both of them. The rock's mass was unchanged, its atomic structure was identical, its gravitational pull was constant. Yet, for a brief, impossible window, its weight, the effect of gravity upon it from a local perspective, had been dramatically reduced. It defied every law they held sacred. There was no data, no energy signature they could lock onto. Just the testimony of their lead scientist and the exhausted, unwell human. They began a new, frantic, and secret study of humanity. They scoured our history, our medical records, our folklore. They found the stories, the ones every culture had, that their science had dismissed as myth. The mother lifting a car to save her child. The artist whose work seemed to radiate emotion and affect the mood of anyone who saw it. The leader whose sheer desperate force of will inspired millions to achieve the impossible. The placebo effect, the healing power of touch, the faith that could move mountains. They discovered that this static energy, which humans called by 1,000 names, spirit, chi, chakra, willpower, love, soul, could, in moments of extreme focus, profound empathy, or dire need, subtly influence the universe. It couldn't break physics, but it could persuade it. It could gently nudge probability. It could lessen a weight, speed a healing, or amplify a hope. Humanity had spent its existence not just mastering the laws of the universe, but quietly, intuitively conversing with them. We didn't see a cold, unfeeling set of rules. We saw a universe that was on some fundamental level responsive to consciousness, to care, to hope, to love. These were not just feelings to us. They were a fundamental force we had learned to interact with, a muscle we had been exercising since we first gathered around a fire against the dark. Cale reported his findings to the Illyrian High Council, his voice, for the first time, filled with a reverence that bordered on religious awe. "They do not command the universe," he said. The data stream supporting his words showing only paradoxes and uncertainties. They ask for its cooperation, and somehow, for them, it often agrees. They don't carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. They convince the world to be a little lighter. We have spent eons mastering the laws of reality. They have spent theirs befriending it. The Illyrians, the masters of physics, had just discovered a new law, written not in mathematics, but in the intangible, unquantifiable, and terrifyingly powerful substance of the human soul. And they realized that in a universe governed by such laws, humanity was not a primitive species. They were its most advanced practitioners.